everybody, welcome to the Felicity Yarn Studio channel. My name is Zoe, this is Darcy, and this is my space where I like to share my making within the fiber arts. So that's mainly knitting, crochet, yarn dyeing, spinning, that sort of thing. So if you're new here, a big welcome. Thank you for checking the channel out, and of course, welcome back to all of my returning viewers. As always, I'm so happy to have you guys here with me today to talk about some making. And yeah, I am back. I have a finished object to share with you guys. I don't think I have any housekeeping announcement type things up front, so I think I'm just gonna go ahead and dive right in. So obviously my first finished object today is my Jupter Crop. This is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter, and I made mine out of handspun yarn, and I actually dyed up everything except for this colorway here. This is from John Arbin. It is the Beautiful Ones is the colorway. I think it's a Corriedale, but the rest of the yarn is merino wool that I dyed. I found an inspiration picture online for a color palette that I wanted to work with. From there, I just tried to match to the colors on the picture as closely as possible. There was one or two, the like purple eggplanty color I would have liked to be a little bit deeper and richer, but I'm overall extremely pleased with how this has turned out. I really think that this fit is really nice. I took some pictures and some footage outside earlier today, so I'm going to go ahead and pop that on the screen for you guys. Again, it's a lovely fit. I feel like Caitlin Hunter's patterns are usually really well proportioned. I don't remember exactly what I got for gauge. It wasn't quite right. I think if I remember correctly, I wound up compensating by moving down a pattern size, but moving up a needle size. So I'm not gonna lie, I honestly can't remember what size I was aiming for in the pattern. I wanna say it was the 48-inch bust, but with my yarn winding up slightly heavier than sport weight and moving up the needle size to get the like gauge and fabric that I wanted, I've wound up with kind of more like a 52-inch bust, which is perfect because I have a 50-inch bust and I feel like it has just the right amount of ease. It's still, I won't say snug around the arms, but it's nice and fitted. It's not too loose. And this is a really, really flattering garment. I really love the shape. I didn't go super cropped with mine. I think I knit to about 11 inches and it grew to 13 inches long with blocking, so that was really nice. And yeah, overall I really love this pattern. I love the way that it showcases the handspun yarn. I really enjoyed spinning with intention and knitting a project from my spinning. I've really been finding that's very fulfilling as far as my spinning goes, to spin and then knit with it, and it doesn't just wind up sitting in my stash, which is what a lot of my kind of first few skeins have been doing lately, or since I made them. So yeah, overall I highly recommend this pattern. It was a really fun, addictive knit. I think I started spinning the yarn in August, and I spun from like August to October to get all the yarn that I needed, and then I cast on in late December the jumper, and I kind of knit most of the body until I got around where the yoke is really long right before you separate for the sleeves, and I kind of fizzled for a week or two, but as soon as I separated for the sleeves, that went really quickly, and I think I was somewhere around here the last time you guys saw it. So yeah, I just knocked out the last of the body, and I will say the sleeves felt a little tedious to knit. I don't know if I was just ready to be done with this or it was just awkward trying to maneuver the two balls of yarn for color work on a sleeve when you have to like flip the whole sweater around. Anyway, that did not detract from the fact that I really enjoyed this pattern. I would highly recommend it. I always enjoy Caitlin Hunter patterns. I think she just writes patterns really well. They always fit really nicely, at least on my body shape. So yeah, this is my Jupter Crop. Very pleased with it, highly recommend. And yeah, I guess I'll move on to my next few finished objects, which are all the same pattern. So over the weekend, I decided that I wanted to make up some little Valentine's Day care packages for my nieces and my nephew, and I wound up knitting them each a little Scrappy Smarled hat. So this one is for my nephew, and he is about 9 months old. And then this is for my newborn niece who was born last month. The pattern doesn't have a newborn pattern. I just compensated by reducing the number of stitches, and on this one I intentionally just stayed at the same needle size that the ribbing calls for the body of the hat. I did it accidentally on this one, but you can kind of see how this is a little bit looser here on the main hat part versus these ones, which are a little bit more dense. So I actually accidentally did it on this one. This is for my niece who is about 6, and then this is for my oldest niece. I think this one turned out super cute. I love this pink. But yeah, this is the Scrappy Smarled hat by Tif Neiland, and I'm on a huge stash busting, scrap busting venture this year. So all of these were either scraps or partial skeins that were leftovers. I did pull 1 or 2 little balls from my blanket stash that I'm crocheting my northeasterly with, but not much. Some of these are colors that were not necessarily what I wanted for the blanket, so I was really happy to find a use for them in making these hats. So yeah, it is Tuesday the 10th, I think. And so I'm gonna need to run to the post office tomorrow and get these in the mail. Thankfully, mail within the state seems to be running kind of on time. So I think I'll get these packages out in time for Valentine's Day. So that is it as far as finished objects go. I feel like I don't have a lot to share with you, but I did finish a sweater and knit 4 hats. So the next whip that I wanted to share with you guys is living in the bag that my aunties made for me. They are called fat bottom bags, and yeah, I sent them this really adorable fabric, and they whipped up this lovely little project bag for me. Living in this bag is my Cozy Classic Light by Jessie Mae Martinson. This is a fingering weight, basic raglan pullover type pattern. And I guess the last time you guys saw it, I put in that stitch marker there. So I got a few inches of the body done. I do just kind of grab this when I want something mindless. I'm kind of savoring it because I really love this colorway so much. I really love knitting with it. I am doing helical knitting to alternate the 2 skeins, and I'm still on my first 2 balls of yarn here. I do have a 3rd one caked up and a 4th one sitting here just in case. But this is a colorway that I recreated from the advent calendars from last year. I don't think that I mentioned this, and I probably should have in the dye-along video. The reason that I say I'm recreating it is when I dye up for advent calendars, I generally don't write down my recipes because to me the advent calendars are one-of-a-kind special colorways. Some of them I do go back and recreate and put in the shop. I do have a few of the like gemstone colorways from 2018 that I've retinkered and remastered and have now written down the recipe, and they're in the shop. But also when I'm dyeing up advent calendars, to me that is my time in the dye pots to really play and experiment with colors and combinations and things that I wouldn't normally do. It's less structured because I don't have to write down those recipes and be meticulous about them. So that's why I say that I was recreating that colorway. And I do have plans to dye some more of those. I think I'm going to try the Haystacks colorway from one of the Monet paintings this week. I might film it. We'll see. Trying to film my dyeing process really slows me down because I'm always trying to not knock my camera into the pot of boiling water, or, you know, worried about getting my mask on and spill dye everywhere. So I do like filming those, but it is a little bit of a like juggling act to try to do all of those things at once. Anyway, so back to the knitting. I have been kind of monogamous lately and trying to finish things and knock out some projects and clear some room in my workspaces with like stash busting and whatnot. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to kind of diving into this one head on. I think this is probably going to be my next semi-monogamous knit. I mean, we all know that I need to constantly have socks on the needles, so that's what I'll share with you guys next. So these are my hand spun socks. This is some yarn that I spun from a braid by Wound Up Fiber Arts in the Ghosting colorway. And so I have knit my just about the entire second sock. I just need to do the cuff. And then I talked about on my last video how my aunties we're doing a little informal sock school with them, and we're gonna all put in afterthought heels together on a pair of socks that we're each knitting. So that is why these are just kind of stalled out for the moment. I won't say stalled out, they're just kind of waiting until everybody is at the same point and ready to put some heels in. I should probably just go ahead and put the cuff on this instead of putting it off for much longer. It would literally take me like an hour to do. So these are toe up socks. I am doing 60 stitches since this did spin up to like a sport weight, maybe even a light DK weight yarn. I'm knitting them on size 1.5 or 2.5 millimeter needles. These are really beautiful. I'm kind of addicted to hand spun socks at the moment, as you will see in a bit. Now, as far as like whips go, that's really all that I have been working on, which is kind of like mind-blowing. I have been doing quite a bit of spinning, so I'm going to get into that in a second. But while we're still talking knitting, I wanted to go ahead and talk about kind of some of my future or soon-to-be whips. I guess technically, since this one is cast on, I could call it a whip, but I literally started it at like midnight last night, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out my gauge here. So this is the yarn that I spun, the Baby Doll South Down braid, and this is a fractal spun skein of yarn. And this is from the kind of informal breed study that I'm doing with my spinning this year. This is from Apothefaery. Her braids are all really beautiful. I like every time I go to her site, I've got 3 or 4 braids in my cart. But yeah, I just started another toe up pair of socks. Since this spun up, it's a 3-ply and it spun up closer to a worsted weight, which is fine. I mean, that means that they're going to knit up really quickly. So since the yarn is so heavy, I am actually knitting these on size 4 or 3.5 millimeter needles. So I'm at 40 stitches total here on this sock. So I think last night I had actually gone up to 48 total stitches, and I got about another inch or 2 in, and I actually ripped it back, so that's why my ball cake looks a little messy. It was just coming out a little bit too big. I kind of have to manage my yarn a little bit better with it being heavier weight. I'm not going to have quite as much yardage to work with. So yeah, I'm going to try to utilize every last yard out of this skein of yarn that I spun up. I think I should be able to at least get like ankle length socks out of them. I'm not sure what type of heel I want to do. I think I might do a German short row heel or probably an afterthought heel. I've not done a toe up heel flap and gusset, and I just don't feel like learning. I mean, I'm sure it's not that hard. I'll sit down and I'll figure it out one of these days. But yeah, I think an afterthought heel is probably just going to be my best bet here. And yeah, I really love how this is working up. These colors are really pretty. I think I'm at the right stitch count now for these to keep going. So these will probably be my next pair of socks that I knit. Finally, the last kind of future whip that I have in mind that I plan on casting on this week. I'm going to start my Clara dress for my new niece, whose name is also Clara. I have caked up some yarn here. This is one of my colorways called Pixie Dust, and this batch came out a little bit lighter and more pastel than the ones that I normally dye up. So I decided to keep these two skeins back, and I'm gonna make her dress. But I also really like this pastel version of this colorway, so I'm going to kind of intentionally dye some this way and make another colorway out of it. But yeah, I really love the like lavender and peach combination right now. It's something that I keep gravitating towards, and I think it's gonna make a really pretty, really sweet, delicate little like spring summer dress for her. The reason that I haven't sat down and started this yet is the instructions are slightly vague. And there's two sizes. The size is determined by your gauge, and I think maybe the weight of yarn that's used. I think the larger size uses a larger, heavier weight of yarn. I don't know, I could be completely wrong. I think I'm just gonna need to cast on and just kind of go for it. I think it's one of those patterns that it's not super huge. They do have gauge recommendations, and I probably should do a gauge swatch, but we shall see. I will update you all on the dress saga. That brings us to spinning. I have been doing a lot of spinning lately. I mentioned in my last episode that I had joined Gemma of the Gemma B Makes podcast, and Naomi, of course, who's my sister. She's the yarn curator. Gemma invited us to join her in Spinuary, which is just kind of a little meaningless personal spinning challenge to spin every day through the month of January. And as some of you all may know, I had the Rona about halfway through January. So that kind of put me out of commission for a few weeks. But the last like week or so of the month, I really got back on my wheel and was feeling the spinning mojo. One of the things that I had showed you guys last time was the two bobbins that I had of some Targhee. So this is what this Hank skein turned out. And the colorful ply thread of yarn was from Republic of Wool in the, it's either Hello Sunshine or Little Miss Sunshine colorway bat. It was a bat, and it has, it's Targhee and Silk Noil and Angelina. Then I had about 3/4 or 3 ounces of just some plain white Targhee, and I spun that as well to ply with this. Now, as I was plying, I found the package for the bat, and it was actually 2.5 ounces and not 3 ounces like I thought, which meant that when I was done plying, I had some left over of the white single. So I found some little mystery bits of fiber in my stash. I think somebody that I bought fiber from last year just kind of included them as an extra goodie in one of the purchases that I made. So I decided to go ahead and spin them up as well. And then I ran out of the white, so I just plied this last little bit with itself. So these are all 2-ply, and they're all woolen spun, and I think I've got about a DK to a worsted weight here. This bat I got 281 yards. This little one I got 80 yards, and this I have about 30 yards. So I kind of figured, since they're all the same weight and they are all spun the same way. I have close to 400 yards of this. They all kind of match each other. They're all kind of bright, happy colors. And even though I don't tend to knit or wear a lot of sparkle, I'm thinking I might knit some kind of shawl or something with all of this. I don't know. I think it would make a really cute gift for one of my nieces, but it also concerns me if they would take care of something that's handspun. They're a little bit young to appreciate something like that. I don't know. I know a few people who have looms, so I might send them to be woven with. We'll see. I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to knitting with some of this. Another thing is I have not set the twist on any of these, so that's why I've got some curly cues and things happening on some of these. They're not the prettiest looking. I feel like I set it on this, but not on these little ones. I don't remember. Anyway, I finished spinning all of that Targhee up and the mystery fiber, and when I had cleared my bobbins, I decided it was time to spin another skein of sock yarn. So once again, this is from Wound Up Fiber Arts. This is in the colorway Stone's Throw. This is the colorway that I was debating spinning when back in like November when I spun up the ghosting colorway. I couldn't decide between these two braids, but I really love how this turned out. There's a lot of like golds and grays and silvers and kind of like grello vibes going on here, but also some browns. It's a really beautiful spin. It's a really beautiful colorway. And normally when I spin Wound Up Fiber Arts, her braids, I tend to strip them in 3 long ways, but for this one I actually split 1, 2, 3 sections to do a 3-ply, and I actually think I might like the way that the colors get distributed this way better. Now I'm speculating here, but I think dividing the braid that way is going to give me a more like even solid-ish tone versus like this one. You can see where the various like stripes of repeats of color were happening in the braid. So I don't know, I'll have to do some experimenting. That being said, while this is absolutely gorgeous, I'm not like dying to cast this color on. I think I'm going to save it for some fall knitting, for some fall sock knitting, because it has very autumnal kind of vibes to me. I also have not gotten around to setting the twist in this braid or the skein of yarn either, so there's a little bit of curly cues happening up top here. But overall, I'm really pleased with how this spin came out. This one I wound up with 374 yards, again closer to a sport weight versus a fingering weight, but that's okay. That's still plenty to make a pair of socks, as far as I can tell. I think I got similar yardage on this spin as well. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how this turned out. But that means that for all of January, this is all of the spinning that I did. For me, this is quite a bit of spinning, especially considering I only have 4 bobbins, which means when they're all full or ready to be plied, I can't just put that aside and start something new. I don't mind plying necessarily. I do like that I have a new Lazy Kate that makes it a lot less noisy and a little more tidy of a situation when I'm plying. I have been focusing more on my plying and trying to, I don't want to say be consistent, even though consistency is part of it. I've been trying to work towards getting the yarn that I want with plying. I don't know how to describe this very well. I just feel like a lot of times my plies are very kind of flat and not like very like rounded and plump. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just aesthetically like the way that that kind of yarn looks, if that makes sense. This turned out pretty good. I talked to Naomi about how she plies, and I think the way that I have been doing it, full disclosure, I did not like really research how to ply once I started spinning. I just kind of sat down and started doing it, so I just kind of have my own method of doing it. Naomi does it, I believe, where this hand is feeding into the orifice and this hand is just kind of keeping the threads from getting tangled, whereas I tend to hold my front hand still and feed in with my back hand. So I've been trying to switch and feed with my front hand. It tends to hurt my arm a little bit, and I like to hold the yarn like this. I think she holds hers overhand. I've just been trying to pay attention to what I'm doing and find the best practices to get the yarn that I want in the end. So yeah, this skein I tried plying Naomi's way, and it did turn out a little bit closer to what I had in mind. I think the 3-ply also just doesn't get that super plump look quite so much like a 2-ply will. But anyway, very happy with this. So I think I'm counting Targhee as my February breed study, since that's the first time that I spun any Targhee. I gotta say, it was a nice kind of bouncy spin. I enjoyed doing the woolen spun with the bats. I wouldn't mind doing some worsted spinning with some Targhee. I have some Targhee bamboo silk blend in my stash. It's undyed, so I might dye it up and spin that later in the year as kind of like a foil so I can compare notes on them. But yeah, it was a really enjoyable spin. It's a very kind of squishy, bouncy, springy fiber as well. So as far as future spinning goes, I think for the month of March, I am going to tackle this BFL silk blend that I got from, you'll never guess, Wound Up Fiber Arts. This is just an undyed natural color. It's a nice kind of silvery oatmeal gray color. And so it's a 85-15 blend. So that'll be a nice kind of change up. I've not spun any BFL before. BFL makes really good sock yarn because I believe it has a longer staple length. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving into this. I also think I might just leave it the natural color. I had kind of toyed around with the idea of dyeing it either before or after spinning it, but I think that the natural is kind of really beautiful on its own. So in the meantime, however, I will probably start this braid next from Wound Up Fiber Arts. This is in the colorway Nest Egg, and this is probably me in a braid of yarn or fiber. It's a really lovely mix of light blues and greens with those golds and browns in there. And this is on her super sock base, which is 90% superwash merino and 10% nylon. I have been on kind of a personal challenge to not spend any money on yarn through the first 6 months of the year. January was my birthday, and it was kind of a crap birthday. So I did allow myself to buy some fiber from Wound Up at the end of the month. But I'm proud to say that is all that I have spent money on. I was given a gift card for my birthday, and I have my eye on something from Etsy that is not yarn or fiber. It is equipment, which is a loophole that I've allowed myself. I do want to get some spinning equipment because I don't feel like I have a lot of that. So I just haven't pulled the trigger because it's kind of a expensive item. So I don't know what I'm waiting for. I should just go ahead and treat myself. But anyway, so that is it. It is kind of a short and sweet one this time around, but I wanted to say thank you to everyone who reached out and let me know that you were thinking about me and my health. And yeah, it was really nice to have some support from you guys. I am feeling much better. I am still lethargic from time to time. Like I'll have 3 good days and then I'll be like dead tired the next day. And I can smell and taste most things. Some things are still a little off, like coffee still tastes off, which is disappointing. But it's getting there slowly, day by day. I'll notice like, oh, I couldn't smell, you know, the smell of the hand soap yesterday and I can smell it today. So I think that's it. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thumbs up the video if you enjoyed it today. I really appreciate it and it really helps me and the channel out, you guys. So I will see you again in a few weeks. Bye.